Good morning. This is David Simpson, artist in residence instructor at the Ocean City Art League, coming to you from my deck. The Art League and I have decided to put out an instructional video for you during this unique time. Hope everybody is doing good and staying safe and practicing your social distancing. So today I'm just coming to talk to you about drawing from observation. I have a pepper on the table, and given my internet constraints here at my house, this video will be done in 4 to 5 short segments. When you start drawing with observation, you want to focus on quality of line, and you want to regularly focus on the observation and looking at the actual contour of your subject. You want to start by drawing, like, the height of it, and really kind of building it up top to bottom and left to right, instead of just drawing it like around the world. And that's kind of what I did here. I started here, and then I came up the sides here on the left and on the right a little bit, and then up top. My ratio here is about a little over a half the height across, going across the actual object. And then you also want to really pay attention to, like, your perspective. I put my pepper in slight perspective, fading back into the right. And I'm doing all of this while using an HB pencil, which is similar to a number 2 pencil. And as I progressed in doing this, I, made some adjustments, which, again, due to the constraints of the video, you didn't necessarily see. But, I made a correction here. I had this too long at first, and then over here some, and then even down on the bottom. You don't want to marry to your actual drawing too early. That's like kind of overcommitting in a relationship. You want to really get familiar with your object and really kind of study it. I can tell by here in the beginning phases of this that I definitely missed a couple things here as far as making more adjustments that would be necessary. This crease goes up in there, and then I would, erase the necessary lines in that general location. So, you should try to, once again, look at the object closely, focus on really studying it as you draw it, and then, make corrections as you go, and then, kind of reassess. But you don't want to take too much time. I mean, even for someone who's not that experienced, probably for an object like this, maybe just a couple minutes to do your drawing, make the adjustments, and then correct it again. So next up will be part 2. So continuing on, part 2. Once you've got your contour lines in place and the shell of your drawing developed, which is a classic way to begin an approach, you can start shading. You want to begin by really focusing on working dark to light and developing your shadows. That's, a very fundamental way to approach it. And then also with that, you want to probably at this point start using a 2B pencil. I forgot to mention that in this I went from HB to 2B to a 6B. I mean, you could use other pencils if you want, but I think that's a good consistent balance. So to point out some stuff here, where's your light source? That is turbo important. It's coming from your upper right. Your main highlight's going to be, or my main highlight's going to be kind of right in here. Typically the opposite of your main highlight is your core shadow. That'll kind of be the general darker areas of your pepper. I also have core shadows in here because this side of the pepper is actually going to block the light in here. We'll have a reflective shadow, which is kind of like just a little bit lighter right along the edge. Then your cast shadow. Your cast shadow will be super dark up near the pepper here, and then that will fade. Ultimately, over time, I'll end up using a 6B pencil in this general area to really darken this. But you probably want to start with your focal point as far as like begin your shading and your core shadows. Those are the two big things. And then, you know, also consider what is the texture of your object. You know, oftentimes trying to recreate the actual texture of objects when going for realistic drawing or painting is going to heighten the overall result of your picture. So for the most part, I'll be shading towards the light, which I do have, I think, over here. Yes, number 3 over here. But I will be at some point like maybe shading in the other direction to kind of smooth the contrast or the texture out, to kind of give it that fleshy kind of feel. But you can already see that I have begun my shading here on the stem, and then there's also some linear aspect in here too that I end up developing later. But for the most part, you are just trying to kind of develop those shadows up. Do not be afraid at this point to continue to make corrections on your contour of your object or in the shading itself, and I wouldn't overcommit to making it too dark too soon. So those are definitely some of the premier focuses of like the beginning foundation of your shading. In my classes, I always talk about the art elements. This particular project, we are focusing on good quality lines to create, you know, your form, your values, which is contrast, dark to light. Traditionally, shading dark to light is the best option. So in segment 3 here, we want to continue to develop the shading. At this point, you're focusing on shading as much as possible, you know, really managing your time wisely and building up the contrast and really starting to push the envelope from 0 to 10. I'm a huge believer in the fact that you should have like almost pure white with pencil, in this case pure paper. Also have some darks. You know, your 0, 1, and 2 should probably balance out in quantity in relation to your 8, 9s, and 10s, like your super lights, your super darks. In quantity, normally speaking, they should probably balance. So you can see here that I have already really kind of developed this cast shadow some and have started to shade, like fade it out. I don't even know if you can quite see that. Let me slide this over. You know, it kind of fades out just a little bit, you know, and it's definitely darker up in here. So that is, you know, vital. And then the same thing is going to happen up in the pepper itself. You can see that this has begun to start to fade out, you know, and I'm starting to build that reflective shadow in there, and then start to really build up the shadows in here. Why? Because again, this side of the pepper is being blocked by the light. Notice that the change of direction here, this rolls out, so I kind of shaded it this way. This is rolling in at this angle, and this is rolling this way, so I shaded it this way, shaded it with the curve to try to emphasize that sort of roundness. And then this is wrapping up in this direction. So, you know, really focus on fading this out and developing your shading. I even have it here down here, you know, your HB should be like used for 1 to 4, 2B should be used from like 4 to 7. You know, obviously you would change the pressures, and then 6B would be 7 to 10 roughly. So, you know, at this point I have started using my 6B pencil and really trying to start to develop some darker areas, even on the edges too. You know, right in here, notice that my edges begin to kind of fade in and out, but yes, there are some darker moments, and I slowly will gradually, I'm back using an HB pencil now, gradually start to fade this. Why? Because once again, my highlight is going to be in here, so you don't want to overshade that. But obviously if you do, you know, you use the eraser, and really the eraser's just as much of a drawing tool as the actual pencil itself. People think they just use to make corrections. No, you can use them to make highlights. So continuing on in part 4, you really want to start slowing down the drawing process, and you really want to focus on developing nice quality fades, like from dark to light. And at this point it's similar to the beginning of your drawing, in the fact that you really want to start paying close attention to your object again, and really comparing it with your actual drawing. It's like you're trying to make an illusion of a twin, basically. And you really start to, you know, get your fading going, continuing to kind of focus on your texture and getting a nice fade. And I'm also trying to shade it with the direction that it's curving to really build, you know, up the feeling of the round form. I've got a nice highlight up here like now, and then continue to focus on your treatment of edges. That is also important. I've pretty much kind of finalized this particular drawing at this point, so that I could more or less focus on you know, just kind of showing you the end result. So, you know, really important to just take your time again, focus on your quality value fade, and then clean up any edges that might be lost, like right in there. You know, that definitely was not distinguished, I think, enough from the actual shadow. You know, continue to maybe focus on your fade of your cast shadow, you know, getting all those kind of nuances as best you can. You know, it helps the end result, you know, be more believable. So soften up maybe some edges. I really like how this fades, but I think it fades a little bit too much. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, you know, as far as you trying to complete a drawing from observation. There's plenty of things around your house that you can focus on. I in the last clip will show you some options as far as what you can do. Really, you know, the sky's the limit as far as what you have around your house and ways to, you know, develop those forms and also, you know, create good contrast along with a focus on texture. Develop the contours, sort of evenly kind of on both sides, top and bottom, just to kind of develop, you know, your overall feeling of the object in relation to the contour of its shape using lines. Then I started to shade dark to light, trying to work towards my light source, and really focused on the dark, like the darker values, really like the core shadow is really what it's called, which on a scale of 1 or 0 to 10, that would be your, like, you know, 5 through kind of 8. And then I started to work a little bit lighter, and as I went along, I tried to pull out sort of certain linear information, like kind of right through here and there. And then I kept developing the shading, not sticking to one general location. And then I even kind of fine-tuned the contour edges. So like right here, there's a really nice fade from dark to kind of light to kind of back to dark. Maybe the light's not hitting it there as much, and then it kind of fades out again. And then also trying to focus on those textures. You know, I pulled some lines out here to try to give this a different texture from the actual flesh of the pepper itself. And then in some moments I kind of went back in and erased a little bit, just to kind of, you know, give some brief areas, like here in the reflective, what this is called a reflective shadow, meaning that the actual object of the thing is actually reflecting off the table, and then therefore the edge isn't as dark as the cast shadow or right of what's above it. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The last thing, just to kind of give you some ideas of things you can draw and create. One, you know, plants are a good one. Great use of line, and also, you know, shadow. Just looking at that plant, the top right is way lighter than the bottom left. Coffee mug, courtesy of Amuse Studios, who I share, Robbie Johnson, who I share my studio with. There's a willow tree. Figurine, another great subject. And then to bring some humor to the situation, there's a couple rolls of toilet paper. Hopefully everybody has plenty of that on supply. But in all seriousness, you know, nice round forms. Look at the difference in the lights and values, like of the outside of the roll to the front edge of it to inside the roll. All those different values actually serve well for drawing and shading. So with that, thank you for your time. Hopefully you find some value and purpose in what I had to offer you today, and I wish everyone nothing but the best in this kind of uncertain time. And hopefully you know, I'll be doing this again soon and trying to create maybe some different type of drawing and or possibly a painting. So best wishes to you all. Thank you very much. Have a good day.